welcome back to Death Before Booze, our true crime paranormal podcast. I'm Sam.
I'm Jen.
Hi, Jen. I missed you.
Hi, Sam.
Even though I saw you yesterday.
I know.
So weird.
I know.
So this week's episode, we are covering horror on Long Island. And we're doing kind of something a little bit different. This is kind of something that we do on Patreon, or that we've done on Patreon, where we like take a case and we break it in half and we both cover like part of it. So the horror on Long Island, we are covering the Defeo murders and the Amityville horror that happened after. So we're talking about that one very specific house. And we kind of picked now because around now is when the murders happened, right?
The murders happened.
Yeah, and then right around now is when the Lutz family, who had the Amityville horror side of it, was looking at the house because they closed on December 18th, which is a month yesterday. Yeah, so like November 18th, and then a month later they were closed and moving in. So we thought this was a very good time to maybe... Appropriate, that's a good word, to cover this.
And like, if you like this style, because Sam and I have talked about doing this type of thing where like I'll cover the true crime, she does the paranormal, like let us know if there's any cases that you guys want, like would think that would work, because this was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, this
is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean we've done, like I said,
it's a team up.
We did it with the Ken and Barbie killers. I mean there was no paranormal there, but we like cut that case in half on Patreon.
But we cut it in half, and John Bonet too.
John Bonet.
We cut in half. So
yeah, we cut that in half last year and on Patreon and did that. So feel free, like.
But we're trying it new for regular episodes.
Let's
so
see
like
how it
this is
works,
exciting.
if you love it. Mine is super long because, horror. But let's hear all about the horrible, dreadful
the
murders. The moitas.
The moitas. I keep...
You do. That's been like your thing the past couple days, the moitas.
Because I go back to the garden episode where they were like, we moited somebody. And I was like, oh my gosh. So here we go. Ronald, or Butch, we're going to refer to him as Butch because that was his nickname, Defeo Jr., was born September 26, 1951 in Brooklyn, New York. He was the oldest of 5 children, born to Ronald, who was a successful car salesman, and Louise. He had siblings. Dawn was 18 at the time. Allison was 13. Mark was 12. And John Matthew was 7.
Okay.
So there's a lot of kids, I guess, involved. So it's a Jen story because of this. So
it was only 3 or 4. There were 4 kids.
It's 5 total.
5? Oh, shit. Okay.
Yeah. So now his father, Ronald, gave them a comfortable living. His dad was, the car salesman they were able to have like a little bit of a higher upper class or a middle class type of living, but he was very domineering.
Ew.
And a lot of the target for his abuse, physically and verbally, was Butch. And as he got older, Butch would lash out physically against his father as a way to retaliate.
Oh, God.
His family took him to a psychiatrist because they were like, okay, there's a lot of anger things going on. But the visits didn't, quote, sit well. And Butch, quote, denied that he needed help.
Okay, so we're in denial also.
Denial. Absolutely.
Denial.
So Ronald and Louise attempted to, basically, after this, they were like, okay, he's not going to therapy. We don't know really what's wrong with him. So they're trying to kind of placate him by buying him things.
Oh, that'll fix it.
Which is
cool.
That's kind of like let's put the Band-Aid on it and hopefully this fixes it. But it really, of course, only made it worse because you can't do that. You can't just keep...
No, wait, how old is
by
he
age 17.
Oh, okay, he's at 17 now.
17.
Oh, so he was
17,
like going through puberty and all that, which is like a hard time to begin with.
Yes, and it kind of just made Butch either more entitled but also more angry, so...
Well, because you're not fixing the problem. You're just putting a Band-Aid over it.
You're just basically like, we don't know what to do. Here you go. Here's stuff.
Cool.
Hopefully you won't kick us in the face or whatever. So...
Okay.
So, so when he became 17, he started to use LSD and heroin.
Excellent. What a good mix.
He was expelled from school because he would have violent outbursts. So now, despite this, though, his dad gave him a job at the dealership that he worked. And his father also gave him guns and alcohol, which, you know, it's...
Hold on. Did his dad own the car dealership? Like, was it his car dealership, or did he just work there? That's my first question.
He just worked there, but I guess because he was like a higher
so
up
like
salesman, that he was
like,
like,
dealership. Like, this house is ridiculously huge.
yes.
Okay.
But I guess he was really like, it depends on like how much you sell too. So like he was pretty successful to the point where Louise didn't have to work, and they had this really nice house, and they basically, and he was like, hey, I'm going to hire my son to basically do, you know,
bullshit stuff.
I think it's kind of weird too, because his coworkers, he's like, hey, my son's going to work for us now. And they're like,
cool.
Oh, that's great.
I hate this.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, but a lot of times at like the dealerships, like when you first work there, especially if like you're 16, 17, 18, it's like your first job, like your real thing is you go and you like take the packaging off the new cars, or like you make sure that they're
moving
clean,
the cars
you move
around.
them around. Yeah, like shit like that. So you're not really selling the car.
Yeah, so
like
he's
you don't
not
even
really
have to
selling,
talk to
he's just
customers.
there.
Yeah, you're just like doing all the back end shit.
Which is fine, because he got kicked out of school, so Dad was like, he needs a job. So, and I appreciate that.
Yeah,
where he wasn't like, just sit around and do nothing. You're gonna work.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna fucking work. So,
but now, did his parents know that he was doing the LSD and the heroin when they're giving him alcohol and guns?
I think so.
Wow, these are parents of the year.
Yeah, I think it. I don't think it was a secret that he had some kind of drug thing going on. And now it's not like they gave him alcohol. I mean, it was there, but also he went to a lot of parties. So I guess at that time the drinking age was lower.
Probably 18. Like
in
when
New
our
York.
parents were
So,
kids, the drinking age was
right,
like
it was like 18. So like they'd go to the bar, and then after that they'd continue drinking at somebody else's house as like
Hell
a,
yeah.
you know, a post party.
Yeah, let's go.
So
The after party.
well, now his behavior, of course, got worse because
Oh, what?
so he threatened on a hunting trip when he was with a friend. He threatened his friend with this rifle. So that's
I
great.
hate it.
He attempted to shoot his father with a 12-gauge shotgun during a fight between his parents.
Cool. Awesome.
He actually pulled the trigger, but the gun malfunctioned. I don't know. Like,
What?
it's a lot.
Oh my god.
And so he's still in the house. Mom and Dad are still there. They're still probably terrified of him, but like, that's enough to be like, please leave.
Yeah.
Get the cops
Time
involved,
to go.
you know?
Yeah. No, I'm good.
So this is kind of where we get to almost the time of the murders. We get to 1974. He was frustrated because the salary he was getting wasn't great.
Well, LSD
or
and
wasn't
heroin
up to what
are
he
very
wanted.
expensive.
Are expensive.
That is not
so,
like, a Whopper at Burger King. Like,
no.
we need the pay, man.
So he staged a robbery with his friend of the dealership.
No, you don't shit where you eat, dude. Come on. You're telling me on Long Island there was nowhere else you could fucking rob?
Right? Well, he thought because he had the inside, like he could be like, oh, I could leave this open, whatever.
Absolutely,
so he
but then
this
you
robbery.
don't do it. You pay your friends
I
to do
agree.
it. Guys, Auntie Sam's going to tell you how to fucking stage a robbery properly. Don't do this. This is incorrect.
No, this is stupid.
Oh
this
my
is
God.
dumb.
Fucking
Now,
stupid.
the robbery was successful,
Cool.
but the police had to come to the dealership and question people because that was the dealership that got robbed. So they were asking him questions, and he flipped the fuck out. He was just like, "Wah, wah, 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 wah." And they're like,
You did it.
This looks This looks entirely suspicious.
That's suspicious.
This this is a little sus. But like they asked him to come down to the station to look at like mugshots or whatever and he was like, no, I'm not coming. I'm not going. And when his dad asked him, hey, did you have anything to do with this? He threatened to kill his father. I would say.
I mean, that is totally how people should react in this situation.
Mm-hmm. Especially if you did the robbery. It's at your place of work. And now you, like, what, did you think the cops weren't going to come and question people? Did you think it was just going to be like, oh, we got robbed, oh well? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Oh, we got robbed? That would have been me. What do you mean we got robbed? What does getting robbed mean?
Oh, we robbed?
Did? What'd they rob? That's terrible.
Oh, I wasn't here. I have no idea what you're talking about. I only get paid minimum
Sally
wage.
Down the street, and then I had some LSD and heroin and topped it off with a beer. I mean, come on.
Right. There's so many alibis he could have used, and he just went, and you're like, okay.
That
clearly
is not the proper response, sir.
He's not a good planner.
Is that what we're gonna? Is that's how we're gonna title this? He's just not a good planner.
He's not a good planner.
Not a good planner.
He's not a good
Christmas,
planner.
we're getting him an organizer. We're gonna work on this. It's gonna be a binder. Lisa Frank with the dolphins. It's gonna get so much better. Yeah, 3-ring binder.
I love Lisa Frank.
At least 4 folders because obviously he is just not a planner.
Well, this is when we get to the night of the murders. It's November 13th, 1974.
Okay.
Using a .35 caliber Marlin rifle from his secret stash, because
he had a secret stash on top of his regular stash.
Well, he was just given guns.
But then it's
like
not
his parents
secret.
were like, here you go.
Like people know about them.
Maybe he bought this one.
Okay.
I don't know. He entered his parents' bedroom and shot them both while they were sleeping.
Oh.
He then entered his brother's bedroom, shooting them both in their beds.
Cool.
And he ended up shooting his sisters point blank in their bedrooms as well.
And nobody woke up
all the murders
to the gunshots.
That is exactly what the conspiracy, everybody's like, all the murders took place within 15 minutes total. Again, everybody was in their beds. I believe everybody was face down in their pillow. I'll get there because I know it's in there. But that's the one thing that everyone's like, not one of the family members woke up, because that's a heavy caliber.
That's like it's not quiet. Gun. Yeah, like
it's not quiet. Rifles are not quiet. So if you start with like, on the other side of the house, you're still going to hear something. And how about the neighbors? Like, really?
Yeah.
It's just weird. It was just a very weird thing that nobody heard anything. So after he did this, he showered, he got dressed for work, and he collected his bloody clothing and the murder weapon in the pillowcase. He dumped the evidence in a storm drain on his way to work.
Don't put it all together.
So then he went to work.
Okay.
So then he went to work at 6 a.m. Now, as the dealership opens, he's there, but Dad's not. So they're like, where's Dad? Like, don't you live together? Like,
we had a fight.
Don't you carpool?
I didn't want to go with him today.
So he called home when he got to work, and he was like, I don't know why my dad's not here. When I left the house, he was getting, he was like, whatever. I don't know why he's not here. So he kept calling home periodically to like put on the show of like, Dad, what's up? Yeah.
Oh, I hate it. Okay.
So then he left the dealership at noon to spend time with friends. So he was like, fuck work. I'm just going to go off and have an early lunch. So, even when he went to like the bars with his friends and stuff like that, he still attempted to call home because he's like, I don't understand why nobody's answering the phone.
If you're that concerned, why didn't you go home?
Uh-huh.
Oh, I have so many issues.
Now, at 6:30 p.m., okay, so this is like a whole fucking day has passed. He enters Henry's bar and he's panicked. And he's like, oh my gosh, you guys got to help me. I think my mom and dad are shot.
You think?
So, yeah, he thinks. Meanwhile, if you look at the crime scene photos, which I did put up there, there's blood everywhere, okay? the bodies aren't there. It's just the bed
Yeah.
because I was like, it's too inappropriate.
Yeah,
But like there's blood everywhere. Okay. So small group was like, what the fuck? So they went back to home with him and they found his parents dead. And then they called the cops and then they were like, oh shit, everybody else in the house is dead. Okay. Now, the physical evidence suggests that Louise, his mom, and her daughter, and Allison were awake at the time of the deaths. The others were not. So they must have woke up, and I don't know how they were able to check that, but I guess, like, judging on the wound or whatever.
I'm terrified right now.
And all victims were laying face down on the bed with no sign of a struggle. Which is weird because if you're killed in your sleep, does everybody lay on their stomachs? Because I don't lay on my stomach when I sleep. I can't.
Used to before I got pregnant. But maybe that's...
My back hurts
maybe
after
that's
that.
What,
like,
yeah, I usually put like a pillow underneath my pelvis. But maybe that's how they knew that the mom and the daughter, like, were they face up?
No, it said everybody was found face down, so maybe he flipped them over after.
Maybe.
For me, everybody was laying face down.
Yeah, no.
It's just very,
that's staged, it sounds.
It's got to be like he shot them and then flipped them over.
I mean, but think about it. A lot of times when murderers kill people that they know, they like cover them up, kind of like out of a guilt sign.
Yeah,
so
they like cover their face
instead of covering them, he turned them over, which
he
seems
flipped
like
them
extra
over.
work if you could just pull the covers over their face.
It really does. It really does, because yeah, all it took would be a pillow.
Yeah, or pull.
I mean,
the
I'm not
covers
saying
up.
do it, but I'm just saying. To me, it's very hard to believe that all 6 people were sleeping the same exact way.
Yeah, I don't.
I just don't. It's too. So, when the police asked him, because he pulled the whole, oh my God, I don't know what's going on, and oh my God, I got home and I don't know what's happening. The police were like, do you know of anybody who could have done this? And Butch said, well, you know what? It could have been a mafia hit. It's always
How dare you? What the fuck?
Because
the Iceman did
there
not
was
come
this
hang
guy
out at your house, okay? Kowalski, whatever his name was, does not give a fuck about you. Okay? Thank you.
So there was an old grudge between his dad and this mafia hitman, Louis Fellini.
Okay.
So he's like, well, maybe, there was an issue.
Your father. They wouldn't have killed the whole fucking family.
Agreed. Now his alibi, because they said, where were you? Because like this,
survive?
whatever. I was up late watching TV. I wasn't able to sleep, so I left early for work.
And because everything...
That could be corroborated.
Yeah, I got there at 6.
Yeah.
And...
Yeah.
Yeah, but it had to take him a hot second. It took 15 minutes to kill everybody. I'm overthinking this. Keep going.
He said he believed his family was alive when he left for work. And then he said, these are all the places I was the entire rest of the day. So I wasn't home. I left for work early. I took off work early because I was like, fuck work. And these are all the places that we went. So conveniently, and he's there. Like, obviously he didn't come home. But so the police placed him in protective custody because they were like, okay, I mean, he clearly wasn't home during all. So let's see if maybe whatever. But when they searched the house, police found an empty box for a recently purchased .35 caliber Marlin gun in his room.
This is the stupidest guy I've ever seen.
And when they went through the timeline, it revealed the murders occurred in the morning and Butch was, in fact, home during the time. So time of death places him there when it happens.
Okay.
So they confronted him and then he changed his story.
Of course he did.
Of course he did. He said that the mafia guy Fellini had appeared in the house earlier that morning. And he put a revolver to Defeo's head. Fellini and an accomplice dragged him from room to room to murder his family. But not him. So I can't picture a mafia hit.
That would be a
where the guy's
terrible episode of The Sopranos.
Right? You're going to drag this little jerk and bring him around the house while you kill his whole family. Meanwhile, are you not screaming so people don't wake up? Like, it's very... And the cops even were like, this doesn't sound right. So they kept pushing. And eventually, he broke down.
I hate it.
Confessed and said, quote, "Once I started, I couldn't stop. It went so fast." Okay. So the trial starts the following year, October 14th. The defense was trying to claim insanity. I mean,
I get it.
No surprise.
I would too, especially
Butch
with
said,
this story. Like, dude, Your Honor, of course he's insane. Did you hear his alibi? Did you hear his story? Like,
did you hear the second story that he came up with?
I rest my case. He's an idiot.
But wait. He's going to come up with another story later on. So there's going to be a couple of things. And you're like, so the defense says he heard voices that were telling him to kill his family. The psychiatrist for the defense supported the claim, saying that Defeo was neurotic and he suffered from dissociative disorder.
Okay. Back then, was that schizophrenia?
You know what? I'm assuming that's kind of what it is.
Dissociative identity disorder, isn't it? DID?
Yeah, so
so maybe it's like
it says dissociative disorder, and it wasn't DID.
Okay.
But I'm assuming it was like a, schizophrenia, he's hearing voices type of thing, and he kind of dissociates from, reality.
Cool.
Now, Louise's brother, Michael, testified he witnessed when Butch was 2 years old. He said, "We were all sitting in the basement watching TV. I don't know, the boy had done something. All of a sudden, he stood up, the father, and just pushed the boy down to the wall. The boy banged his head and part of his shoulder or something." So he's kind of reclaiming, like,
head trauma.
Dad abused his son.
And head trauma.
At 2 years old. So he's, so, like, he pushed his son into the wall. So clearly there's some issue. But... the prosecution said he suffered from antisocial personality disorder, which is a little bit different than just I have a head injury and I dissociate from reality. He was aware of his actions, and he was driven by his self-centered attitude, which, I mean, up to this point makes complete sense because he tried to kill his father before.
Yeah.
He seems like a prick. He threatened to kill his friend on a hiking trip. So, like,
I get it.
He's shooting 1,000 here.
I'm picking up what you're putting down there, prosecution. I get it.
Well, November 21st, so just about a little over a month later, the jury found him guilty of 6 counts of second-degree murder and sentenced to 6 consecutive life sentences, where he was sent to Greenhaven Correctional Facility in Beacom, New York. He, of course, appealed for parole, but was turned down.
That's good.
Because after his conviction... Mm-hmm. Oh, no. Sorry.
Why second degree and not first degree if they can place him there? He purchased the gun. It seems premeditated.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing. Like, I have an issue, like, understanding fully. Like, second degree is, I guess because it was... like a passion thing, because he said he just started and he just couldn't stop, as opposed to, like, I'm going to methodically kill my whole family. Like, that wasn't the plan going in.
Okay.
So maybe that's where the second degree comes in.
I can buy that. I'll buy that for $1. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Butch, after he was convicted, did a lot of interviews.
I'm sure he did.
And he came up with a lot of different accounts of what happened. And it's very interesting because he brings in names of people. He's very, like, sure of this.
Was there an owl? Did the aliens come?
No. The aliens, he could have probably had a better shot at.
The owls and the aliens, man. This is like my new thing. I feel like
it's always the fucking owls. It's like, no, it's not a barn owl. It's not
a barn owl. Stop it.
I mean, clearly they were all shot, so it's not that. Unless,
I mean,
aliens were able to use guns too, and owls, I don't know, maybe they teamed up. I don't know.
Just an alibi. I'm just trying to throw it out there. Trying to help him out.
It's just, I think he would have had a better time trying to explain that, but
cool.
In 1986, he claimed his sister Dawn was the one who killed their father. Their mother killed all of their siblings, and he killed his mother.
Cool.
I'm sorry. He stated he took the blame because he was afraid to say anything negative about his mother and his father. And he was afraid to say anything because, what's it called? His grandfather, Michael, so not the brother, but Michael Sr., was involved in the Genevieve's crime family. So he was worried that if he said something negative, he'd get a mob hit on him. He's just bringing all these. So.
Okay.
He also said he was married at the time of the murders to a woman named Geraldine Gates, and she was living in New Jersey. The night of the murders, his mom phoned to ask him to return because Dawn and his father had gotten into a fight. So he drove from Geraldine's house with Geraldine's brother, Richard, down to Amityville, and this is where he could verify the whole story.
What?
There's a lot of like the different options he's giving people. So
this is worse than the LSAT test. I'm so confused.
It's confusing because you're like,
so is there like a real Geraldine Gates? Is this like a human?
So
did she have
we're gonna
a
get
brother?
there. So in 1990, he filed a 440 motion,
Cool.
proceeding to have his conviction vacated.
Okay.
He said, once again, we're changing a little bit of the story. Dawn and an unknown assailant who fled the house before he could get a look killed their parents, and Dawn killed their siblings. He was the only person there, and he killed Dawn by accident because he was trying to get the rifle from her.
Wasn't Dawn like 12?
No, she's 17, but still.
Okay. I don't know why I
mean,
thought she was younger. But okay.
Yeah.
Why?
He's just like throwing her right under the bus.
Dawn, apparently.
Yeah. But in another explanation, so he says she did it, and then he's trying to grab the gun, and the gun went off. And that's yeah, in the head
for the gun. Yeah, I hate when that happens.
In another explanation, he claims to have killed her in a rage because he showed up, found the bodies, and was like, "What the fuck did you do?" and killed her because of that.
That's the story.
Or
we
maybe
should have started with, honestly.
Or maybe.
Okay.
She and him did this together because she was also afraid of his father.
Okay. Is that like...
He said he was married...
I'm sorry. Is that like what he came up with? Like another story? Or is this like a conspiracy theory? Okay.
No, this is what version. He said.
Okay.
Right. So he came up with like a good amount of possibilities, and everyone's like, that's nice, but none of those things happened. Like,
cool story, bro.
So,
love that.
So he said at the time he was married to Geraldine, and her brother was with him during the time.
Yeah.
An affidavit from Richard, her brother, was submitted to the court, and it was asserted that he could not be located to testify. So he said, well, ask her brother. Her brother was with me. He couldn't be located.
He doesn't exist.
Because he doesn't
no
exist.
No shit. Huh. How about that? Wait, I got a potato. I'm going to draw a face on it and name it Richard. He came with me.
This is Richard.
Richard.
He came with me.
He came with me.
It's just so weird because it's like, okay, so they live in New Jersey. He's married to this woman. Mom calls to say, hey, I'm scared because there's a fight going on. And that there's a lot. There's a lot to unpack with this idea. But it doesn't matter because they tried to look for Richard. He doesn't exist.
Cool.
Okay. Geraldine was living in upstate New York, married to somebody else at the time of the murders.
So, did he just happen to pick a name that matched somebody else in the general area of like New Jersey, New York, and she's happened. Like, "What? What?"
Yeah. So when they did go, she didn't testify at trial because the attorneys were like, "Well, It's not.
She's like,
she's
who's
like,
this
who the
guy?
fuck is that? I don't even live in New Jersey. I live in upstate New York, and I'm married to somebody else. So they're like,
my married name
all
is
right,
Gates.
we
Like,
see,
cool.
we see what's happening here.
Oh my god.
So it's such a weird. It's just so funny because they were like, no, we fact checked you, and you're wrong. Like, like
You're not allowed
it's
to
like,
fact check me.
You're not allowed to. No, I told you this is what happened. They're like, okay, well, Richard doesn't exist. He's
wrong.
a potato that you drew eyes on.
Unpacking your angry eyes, just in case. It's a Mr. Potato.
And in 1992, they secured a statement under oath in which she, Geraldine, admitted that Richard, her supposed brother, was fictitious, and that she did not actually marry Defeo until 1989 in anticipation of the 440 motion. So I guess they did get married on paper, but this was in 1989.
So they actually knew each other?
I guess at some point they knew each, or like he knew her. Maybe she visited him in jail. They did eventually get married, but they got married in 89. The murders happened in 74. So.
Okay, that just threw a whole wrench in everything that you've said. I'm so like, what the fuck is happening?
It's very
here?
confusing because there's so many things that he said.
So she could marry him, or is she now like a bigamist?
I guess she got divorced, and then like maybe they met somehow. Like she met him in prison. She wrote to him. I don't fucking know.
Oh my god!
And
like when we were talking
they got married
on Patreon on Graveyard Chats for like the crazy people that like want to marry like
yes.
fucking murderers. Ew.
So and he was like, okay, let's get married, and that's when he started to throw her name in the interviews. Like, oh, we got married, and they're like, yeah, but you didn't get the marriage certificate says you got married in 89, not in 74. So even though technically you're married, you weren't then, so still go fuck yourself.
Yeah, you still suck. Sucks to suck. Wow.
Also,
okay,
police found traces of unburned gunpowder on Dawn's nightgown, which is what Butch alleges that she had it. It proves that she did the firearm. However, a ballistics expert testified that unburnt gunpowder is discharged through the muzzle of a weapon, indicating that she was in proximity of the muzzle of the weapon when it was discharged, and she did not fire the weapon. So, he's got the muzzle to her head.
Yeah.
And he fires. Uh-huh. That's why there's gunpowder on her nightgown, not because she fired.
Oh, I don't like it.
So his claims of, oh no, she's the one who did it. She had an argument with my dad. She killed everybody. I got so angry with her, blah, blah, blah. This poor girl, I don't know anything about Dawn, okay? But he threw her right under that fucking bus. And he was like, she did everything. I was just there and I killed her. It's such a weird, I guess, like, to make it seem like, oh, well, you know what? I didn't want her good name to be smeared.
But
so like I took the blame. Right? So the poor girl. So she did have gunpowder residue on her. But according to ballistics, if she's in close proximity of the muzzle, because he had it directly in her face, it makes sense that she would have it on her nightgown.
I mean, I get it. Hands. It makes sense to me.
So his explanation is never quite the same every time, as we've seen.
What?
So
what do you mean?
This leaves people to think that the newer claims that he started to make weren't even close, because he's like, oh, well, you know what actually happened? And they're like, bro, it's like 95. Like, you can't like make up shit anymore.
This
like,
is definitely like, I remember we were kids and there were like Goosebump books, and every like month a new Goosebump book came out, and it was just like, what is this one about? What is this one about?
Right.
And they keep getting worse.
Yeah. And I just think it's like that. It's after a while he was like, you know what actually happened? And they're like, no, stop it. That didn't happen. No. Like, after a certain point, they cut him off and they're like, stop giving us
You're done.
possibilities and confessions because it didn't happen.
Yeah.
So in 2000, a book was published called The Night the Defeos Died by Rick Osua, who interviewed Butch.
Cool.
He found the implication of Dawn to be believable. So as he's interviewing him, he thought, okay, maybe this could be believable. Okay. He says the crime scene photos strongly suggest that more than one person was involved. I think this is a biased thing because he's interviewing Defeo, who, again, just go back to like the graveyard chat when we were talking about the serial killer. Sometimes they're very personable. So he's probably like, yeah, you know what? My sister, she's such a sweet person, but man, you know, my father really gave her a hard time. Like,
and then think about it. If this has been your obsession in prison for almost 20 years now, like this is the story, this is the thought process that you have been mulling over. Of course you would be. He already has this dissociative disorder, apparently. Like, if this is where your brain goes and you are just constantly believing this lie that you've told, your convictions are going to be, like, you're not going to know what the difference is. Wait, did Dawn kill anybody or not? This just becomes your reality. So you have the conviction of, no, this happened. Dawn did it. So it might not even be at this point that, I mean, he is lying, but that he even realizes he's lying.
But he doesn't realize... Also, he has antisocial personality disorder. So
throw that on top.
Part of that is manipulation. So there's a whole other factors that could go in there. So the guy who wrote the book, if you're going to read that one, it's probably very biased to the point where it's like, oh, he didn't do it by himself. You know, the sister could have helped. Okay, fine. Okay. Other investigators who have made documentaries also agree that it probably wasn't possible for him to do it on his own. Because, quote, how could a person walk through a 3-story Dutch colonial and shoot 6 different victims on separate levels and no one got out of bed and no one put up a struggle?
Yep.
That is the big thing that people are like so
hung up on.
Baffled.
I get it.
Because... how does not even that, the neighbors too, because that house is very close. It's not like your neighbors are super far away.
No.
So if you heard a rifle,
it's only on like a quarter of an acre.
6 fucking times.
Yeah, like And think about it. Like you're in Long Island. Like this is still, it's a suburb, but it's a suburb of New York. So like you don't have a ton of room between these two houses. There is not.
So it's that's why people to this day are like, it wasn't just him. Maybe the sister theory is in there. Who knows? I mean, and then but like
killed her
people are like, it's very
put her back in bed,
right? And it's very like, it's a logical idea that people are coming up with because you're like, how did nobody notice? Fair. Now, Butch actually ended up dying in prison at the age of 69. Nice. March 12th, 2021. The reason is not
that's
released.
Like kind of recent.
Yeah, and they never disclosed the reason. I think it might have been like it could be health issues, like
That's COVID was
despite despite this, Butch never disclosed his true motives, and some say his murderous rampage was rooted in years of conflict, jealousy of his siblings, could have been. Motivated by greed, because thinking that if his entire family's dead, I can inherit everything. Who knows? But that is that's the negative energy that comes from that house.
Wow.
And all of the confessions and possibilities.
Choose your own adventure.
You know what? This is it. Choose your own adventure.
Choose your own adventure. Wow.
Go to page 30 if you think.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I used to love those books. They used to confuse me, but I used to love them.
Those were great. I'd always die by a snake bite for whatever reason. I always pick the fucking snake bite route. I don't know why.
I mean, at least it wasn't dysentery.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Wow. Okay, I thought I knew more about the Defeo murders than I actually did, because half of that was just like, what in the fuck? Like,
when I jumped in, I was like, what is happening?
This is
because I thought this was pretty clear.
Fuck. Okay. Cool. So I'm looking at our time. I see we're already at 43 minutes. So guys, buckle in. This is going to be a long one.
But it's Amityville. Everyone loves it.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just letting you know. We're in for the long haul. So after the horrific tragedy that was the Defeo murders. The house at 112 Ocean Ave, Amityville, New York, was left empty for over a year. They were trying to sell it. Nobody wanted it. Entered the Lutz family. So we have George and Kathy. They had gotten married on July 4th in 1975. So that's about a year after the Defeo murders happened. And Kathy had 3 kids from a previous marriage. So Daniel, who was 9, Chris, who was 7, and Melissa, who we refer to as Missy, who's 5. They also had a Malamute Labrador mix named Harry. Harry, so good. He's a good puppy. So they were hoping to move into a house that was big enough for the family, as well as becoming an office for George's business. So George basically did house inspections. Like, when you get, you're buying a new house, you have to get it inspected. That was his job. And he had an office on the other side of Long Island. And he was like, yeah, I'd like to get rid of that office, stop paying rent on that, and just do everything out of the house or
work from home.
Yeah. He had a couple people who worked for him, but, he wanted to downsize a little bit. So they started working with a realtor, and this was the first house that the realtor brought them to. And, like you said, it's a beautiful old house.
Did she tell them about the moitas?
So...
No,
she did. I'm getting to that.
Did you ask about the moitas?
They asked. So it might have been a little bit more than what they bargained for, but they got the house for a steal at $80,000. And I'm going to tell you about the house, and you're going to be like, fuck, why can't I get this? So...
Well, because 6 people didn't die in it.
Well,
so that's why we can't
died in it. It stood vacant for over a year. Nobody wanted to live in a murder house. So 80 grand, you can have it. Prior to agreeing to purchase the house, the Lutzes, so George and Kathy, went to the police, and they did request whatever public records they could review. They wanted to know everything about the murder. I mean, they had heard about it. They lived on Long Island. It wasn't like they had their head in the sand. But you know about it, but do you really remember the address or what the house looked like or what? No. So when the realtor was like, yeah, no, it's a great house. It's got 5 bedrooms. It's got this, that, and the other thing. And 6 people died here, but who cares?
But it's fine.
Yeah, it's all good. It's fine. All good.
It's clean.
They did go to, the professional came in, the police people came in. They cleaned everything. No blood's left on the walls.
You wouldn't even know there's a murder. You wouldn't even know.
I have no clue. So they went to the police. They got as much information as they could before they bought the house or committed to buying the house. And they felt prepared. They're like, okay, this happened here. It is what it is. We can't say no to this. So this is a 3,600 square foot waterfront Dutch colonial. 5 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, detached garage. It included a boathouse, swimming pool, and it's on, like I said, a 1/4 acre of land on Long Island.
Jesus. I didn't realize it was that big.
This house is huge. Like you said, it's 3 stories and a basement. This house is ridiculous. Ooh. So today the Zestimate says, sorry, there's somebody turning around in my neighbor's driveway, so Riggs has to let everyone know. I'm sure you hear him. I don't know if you can hear my husband yelling at him, but yes, it's happening. So today, the Zestimate of this house is $1.2 million.
Makes sense.
They jumped at the opportunity to own this property. They're like, we would be dumb to not take this opportunity.
Take it.
So the family officially moves in on December 18th of 1975. They had their priest stop by and bless the house as they're moving everything in. And when the priest shows up, he makes his way upstairs to the 2nd floor for one of the bedrooms that's going to be used as the playroom. And he noped the fuck out after he did this room. So he got the main floor done. Then he goes up to the 2nd floor. He goes into this bedroom and he's doing his little blessing. And the priest says he heard something or someone growl in his ear, "Get out. And he went,
yeah.
Power of Christ compels you. I'm out. Like, fuck it. We're done.
Goodbye.
Cool.
Here's some holy water.
Yep,
Goodbye.
I'm going to leave this anointing oil and this holy water here. And I'm going to go do anything else. Have a great time. Later that same day, Daniel, the 10-year-old, brought a box of his toys up to the room. Again, this is going to be the playroom. And he's greeted with something like 1,000 flies. Now, this is December in New York. So for people who don't live in the United States, it's freezing. Like, it's cold. Houseflies are not a thing in the winter in New York. Like, if you got one, it's like something's rotting in your house. Okay? So, inside the room, there were no flies there when the priest was there. And this is just, like I said, a couple hours later. So he starts killing the flies and he's calling for help. So his other brother comes up. They killed a bunch of them, and then they call down for George for like more help. They're like, dude, there's all these fucking flies. So George is like, what is your problem? And they're like, there's flies. Like, you need to come help. So they run downstairs and they're like, no, we really need help. Come upstairs. Now they're like, what did I say? 9 and 7. Like, they're like, dude, come help me. By the time they got back upstairs, all the flies were gone. The live flies, the dead flies, the sound of flies. No flies were in this room. And George is like, what the fuck is wrong with you two? Like, come on. We have too much to do to be playing these pranks. So they're settling into the house now. They're all moved in. And the boys and the girls are reacting differently. So the boys and George start getting very aggravated and angry, especially with each other. Now, the boys start fighting with each other, screaming at each other. And I'm not talking like, oh, give me my toy back. I'm talking like full on fucking brawling. Like, I'm going to break your nose because you touched my t-shirt type thing. And this was not normal behavior for them. They were like best friends, like thick as thieves. And now they're in this house and they really don't even like each other. There was already strain between the boys and their newer stepfather. And now it's getting worse between the three of them, and all three boys are lashing out at Kathy and Missy. So they're having their own shit. So just a quick picture. George is more of a military man. He's, I think he was a military brat. He was also in the military himself. And he wasn't great with being around kids or having his own kids. Like, he didn't have any kids. He really didn't hang out with kids. This was like a brand new experience. So he's trying his best.
Great that he has 3 now.
And they're all under the age of 10.
Here they are. Yeah, and that's like the worst thing if you don't like kids.
Yeah. I mean, I can't say if he liked or disliked them. He just was not exactly comfortable.
A kid person, which...
So this is he's having a hard time transitioning into father figure for these children. And now we're in this house where shit's popping off. Now, Missy and Kathy in the house were filled with a sense of peace. They were like, this place is great. I feel great here.
Interesting.
Kathy said on more than one occasion, before the family was up, she'd be sitting in the kitchen having her morning coffee. And she would feel like a very warm, calming presence with her. Every so often, she felt like a female presence, like give her a little hug on the shoulders, like, hey, girl, you're doing great, like that type of thing. She felt like she was being encouraged. Like, it was a very good thing. She did begin to have a shorter temper, but it was more because her 2 sons are acting like heathens. Her husband is freaking out every 30 seconds and is being nasty to her. And she's just overwhelmed trying to get settled into this house, and nobody's helping her.
Yeah.
So,
fair.
I get it. And it starts to seem like a vicious cycle is happening. So the men get angry, a fight breaks out, Kathy loses her temper trying to fix the situation, the house feeds on the bad vibes, and it just keeps cyclically happening. Every day, every couple of days, something happens. So another thing with George is he felt like he could not get warm. He went through a cord of wood. That's like a shit ton of wood, a cord of wood. It's like I pounds and pounds and pounds of wood. In a week or two, and he was absolutely choking the furnace at the same time. So all of the thermostats said 80 or above, and he's still sitting in front of the fireplace freezing with blankets, hoodies, sweatshirts, t-shirts, jacket. He's like, this place cannot get warm enough. And Kathy's like, bitch, I feel like I'm going through fucking menopause. Stop with the fire. I'm done with the fire. I can't handle this. I'm dying.
Turn it off.
Like, everybody's walking around like Florida in August, and this guy's like, like, it's nuts.
I love that.
Yeah, so one time George was tending to the fire and he turned around because Kathy came into the room, and he freaked out because he says Kathy wasn't herself. George said she looked not only demonic, but it also looked like half of her head had been blown off, possibly by a shotgun.
Oh.
Don't like that. Yeah, don't like that at all. Nighttime seemed to affect everybody differently as well. So every single night, George would wake up at 3:15 and he would either hear music, the sound of a door slamming, gunshots, or screaming. He would also wake up in weird places around the property. So not in bed where he should be, but like in the basement, in the dining room, in the backyard by the boathouse. Like, he'd just wake up at 3:15 and be like, no wonder I'm fucking cold. I'm outside in the middle of fucking December. Kathy began having bad dreams of the night the Defeo murder happened.
Yeah.
And she said her dreams were always from this perspective of Butch Defeo. Mm-hmm. She could give details on the murders that were not reported by news or newspapers, including the order in which the family had been killed, something the police weren't even 100% sure of.
Huh.
So now, in my opinion, it's like, cool trick, but you also did get to review everything that the police had.
Right.
So are you really having this dream because of the house, or is this something that's just mulling about in your brain?
Yeah.
I mean,
when you leave the TV on,
yep,
and you start to dream about whatever it is.
Yeah, something like that happening. And that's just, I know there are a million conspiracy theories. That's something I'll get to at a different time, but that's something that just always sticks out to me.
Yeah, of course, because you're right.
You're kind of influenced, like, you know what happened.
You know you're in a house where 6 people were murdered.
Exactly.
It's
The kids were also affected in weird ways. So at night while they were asleep, they would move into the same positions that the Defeo kids were found deceased in their beds.
Oh, no.
This was proven by crime scene photos and Kathy's dreams. Also, all of the family complained of terrible nightmares constantly. Like, there were times where Missy didn't want to go to bed because she didn't want to have dreams.
Well, the priest didn't bless the whole house.
You got told to get out. I mean, I fucking left too. Yeah, bye.
I know, but like maybe if you had
maybe if
you'd
you
put
did your
some
job,
sage all over the
I
place.
mean, sage is not even a Catholic thing. They would not be with sage. Like, that'd be like, I would come in and do sage. I would have saged shit out of that house and been like, fuck it.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So
fine, but Jesus, poor baby girl.
I know, poor thing. So there were also events with the family dog acting strange. So they made Harry a run in the yard so he could live out there in his little dog house and not have to be like chained up in the yard all the time. But then there were also times where they would take, like, if the kids were outside or whatever, they would take him out and kind of put him on a lead so he could like be in different parts of the yard. You know, he wasn't an inside dog; he was an outside dog. He was part Malamute. They're like built for cold.
Yeah,
like,
they love
there.
being outside. They love being
so
outside.
When they first moved in, the dog would bark constantly, but mostly at the boathouse, especially at night between the hours of midnight and 3 a.m. As they were in the house longer, it seemed like Harry would sleep 90% of the day. Like, he just kept sleeping longer and longer and longer. And George is like, maybe I need to take him to the vet. Maybe he's sick. Maybe something happened. Maybe he just doesn't like the house. Maybe he ate something on the property. He's not, like, maybe he got into something. But, like, there were times where he would go out and check on the dog in the middle of the night. And he would have to be, like, in the kennel where the dog was, like, petting him to wake him up. And then he would wake up and freak the fuck out. just start barking and freaking out. Like, he didn't even recognize George anymore.
Jesus.
Also, it seemed like Harry started to try to commit suicide. So he would be on the lead, and the dog would wrap himself around something enough that the lead would shorten, and then he would jump over the fence into his, like, kennel try and hang himself. And George would come, or the kids would come and, like, get him down and, like, make sure he's okay. And as they were walking away, he would do it again. So, like, the dog did this multiple times in a short period, like in an hour or two, like, just trying to kill itself.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I don't like that. So, okay. Now, the boathouse, since we're out in the yard, I'm going to stick to the boathouse. It had a garage door on, like, the property side. So, like, you could open the door, get in the boathouse, and then, like, take your boat out. It was not uncommon for George to look out of the window of the house and see the garage door either wide open when it was supposed to be closed or vice versa at any given time. And there were times where the door would open and close and open and close and open and close all by itself. So in one of these instances, the door is opening and slamming, and George and Daniel go outside to try and deal with it and make it stop. So they're out there, they finally get it under control, and when the two guys turn around to, like, go back to the house, they see in Missy's bedroom window, watching them, what they describe as a cartoon pig with laser red eyes and wolf teeth. And these
what the fuck?
These characteristics are indicative of demonic activity. So there have been plenty of demonic situations where, you know, flies are present, demon pigs are around.
Yeah.
This is not like something you just fuck around with. So they run back to the house, they get to Missy's room, and it's completely empty. Like, Missy's not even in there. But the rocking chair in the room is rocking at a pretty steady pace. So they try and stop the rocking chair. Like, you know, they hold it and they let go and it goes right back to rocking and rocking and rocking. And they're like, nope. They put toys underneath it. They try and stop it. Everything moves. They're like, I need to get away from this. So they leave the room. They come back 10, 15 minutes later just to be like, hey, it's still fucking rocking.
Jesus Christ.
Also, as you know, we are in December, so it's snowing. There is snow on the ground. After they saw the pig, the demonic pig in the window, every morning, if there was snow on the ground, they would see little pig prints walking away from the house towards the boathouse, and they would stop like midway through the yard.
No.
And every night, the previous day's footprints would be gone, and there would be a brand new set. So, like, it would, like, kind of, like, go around or, like, in a diagonal or this way. And, yeah, so it was every morning.
No.
Missy started to talk about having an imaginary friend whose name was Jody. She described her as a little girl. But the family started to see, like, consistently, wherever Missy was, they'd see the pig. And it would be like a split-second thing. Like, you'd blink and be like, I definitely just saw a pig. Or it'd be out of the corner of your eye. Like, you never saw it dead on. You didn't, like, get to encounter it. It was just, you knew this pig was there. And she was describing her as a little girl. Like, not a pig.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Missy would also be in her room to play. And when she was in her room, she would become very reserved and hum this song. And now, I've heard this story, but it doesn't make sense based off of what you were saying. That Jody was the name of one of the Defeo kids who was killed. No. So now I don't know if Allison or Dawn had a nickname.
A nickname, maybe.
And they were called Jody as a nickname. Could possibly be. But it was that Jody was the name of one of the Defeo kids. Probably Allison if Dawn was older, because Allison must have been younger, and that kind of fits this imaginary little girl. But whatever song this humming was like the only song the Defeo kid knew. And so Missy would be in her room, very reserved, sitting in the rocking chair, staring out the window, humming this song. And then if she left the room to like go to the bathroom or go talk to her mom or just, be a kid for 5 seconds with ADD who needs to like go do something else, she would be fine. Like she'd go right back to her personality, very bubbly, very whatever, blah, 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 blah. Then the second she'd go back in the room, she would pick up humming the song in the same exact spot she had stopped humming it.
So weird.
That freaks me out. There was also an event with Missy where the boys were outside playing in the yard. George was in the living room trying to get warm, and Kathy was in the kitchen. The boys start screaming because Missy had climbed out of her bedroom window and was on the edge of the roof. George runs outside. Kathy runs upstairs to Missy's room, and Missy is just disassociating, staring at the Long Island Sound, but it seems like she's talking to somebody. Kathy gets the girl back inside, thank God. Everybody goes inside, and Missy tells the story that her friend Jody was out there on the roof with her and said, if you jump off the roof, we can play together forever.
I really don't like that.
I don't like that at all. Like, not even a little bit.
I really don't like that.
So,
Jesus Christ.
We're at Christmas now. Now, they've been in the house for like 2 weeks. Two. George and Kathy are fighting. George is worried about keeping the house warm. He wasn't going to work. He felt like he couldn't leave the house. Kathy was also very reluctant to leave the house, though, but more of the fact, like, why would I leave this calming place to do anything?
Right.
So Christmas was slim pickings. Whatever they had purchased for the kids prior to moving into this house for Christmas was what they had. They hadn't gone food shopping in the 2-3 weeks that they had been there. They didn't even have a Christmas tree. So they are like dwindling down. So Kathy's mom and brother stopped by on Christmas Eve with food and a tree for the family. Immediately after Christmas, as they're taking down these decorations, what little decorations they put up, everything gets a million times worse. Oh. The crucifixes in the house start turning themselves upside down in the presence of the family. So the family sees this happening.
That's
yeah.
Great.
Whenever this happened, a terrible stench filled the house, and it's described by the family that it smelled like New York City raw sewage in the summer. If you've been to New York in July, you've smelt it. You know exactly what we're talking about. There were times where George and Kathy would try to bless the house themselves, so they would hold hands and like start saying the Lord's Prayer or whatever, and they would hear a voice say, "Will you stop?" Like super sarcastic.
Oh.
This is probably the worst part of the story. Like, this is the climax here. So again, it's after Christmas in December in New York. It's super cold. This smell is filling the house, so they start to open windows because they want the smell out.
Yeah.
I mean, Daniel, they helped on the main floor, then goes upstairs, and he is trying to open a window in the playroom, and it's stuck. And he keeps trying and trying and trying, and finally it shoots open, like whoosh, all the way open. So this kid now has his hands on the windowsill, and he's like kind of sticking his head out the window a little bit because he's been in this room with this horrible stench for a couple of minutes. Yeah. It's just like, I need fresh air. Like, oh my God. So he's got his hands on the windowsill. His face is kind of outside. And his brother, Christopher, comes in and is like, hey, whatever. So his hands are still on the sill. Daniel turns to look at Christopher, and the window crashes down onto his hands.
Ooh.
And obviously, Daniel, being 9, 10, whatever he is now, is screaming. So Christopher's there trying to open the window and yelling for help. George and Kathy come upstairs. They're trying to get the window open. Missy's in the room hysterically crying because what the fuck is going on?
Right.
And for at least 5 minutes, they fight with this window to get it open, and it will not budge. So George kind of pulls Kathy away and is like, okay, we need to regroup. Like, what is happening? We need to think logically. What can we do to get this window open? And as they turn their backs to kind of be like, okay, should we get like a shoehorn? Should we get a pry bar? Should we break the window? Like, what should we do? The window gently pops off of the kid's fingers. And he can pull them out.
No.
Now, Daniel describes his fingers as being skin to skin. The bone is gone.
Yeah.
His fingertips are still there, but they are only being held onto his hands by his skin. Kathy takes him downstairs to the kitchen to get him some ice. You know, like, because ice is gonna fix this, apparently. Like, I would be like, 9-1-1. Hello. Shit. But
like, I'll run there myself.
Like, get the kid in the car. We're going to the ER. Like, hello.
Mm-hmm.
But she gets him into the kitchen, sits him down at the kitchen table, and turns around to go get him ice out of the freezer. As her back is to the kitchen and she's looking in the freezer, Daniel says a female spirit walked past his mother through the kitchen door towards him, walked through the table and through his hands that were on the table, and sat down next to him. So he could feel someone sitting next to him. He said he felt very warm and calm, like everything was going to be okay. He could look over and he sees the woman. He also sees through the woman, and that there's an indent in the chair, like in the bench next to him. So like picture like a bench, like a table with a bench on one side, and there's like a cushion, and there's like an indent where someone's sitting. And he blinks. The woman's gone, and his fingers are fine. But there's still an imprint on the cushion like someone's sitting there. Apparently, the only evidence that this happened is that the pinky on his left hand is a little crooked. Like, the tip of his pinky is crooked a little bit. But everything else is fine.
I don't know.
He had no pain. He had no existing injury. Like, he had no problem with his hands after that. Just his left pinky was a little more crooked than it was before all of this happened. I got nothing. Okay, so another major incident that happened a few days after this, Daniel and George had like a really big fight. Like, they were in a row. They were like not having it. Not uncommon, obviously, like we talked about before,
right.
But this one was really bad. So Daniel storms off to go to his room. Kathy starts following him, and Daniel says he felt something grab his feet and pulled him up the stairs. And this happened in front of Kathy. So you're walking up the stairs, something grabs you by your heels and starts pulling you up. So your head, your back and your head are like on the stairs now. Jesus. So Kathy's there and she starts screaming like, oh my God, are you okay? What happened? Like, it's not like he tripped forward. His legs got taken out from under him and he went up some stairs. So he's laying there, and as he's like, what the fuck just happened? He says he feels possessed. Like, something is in his body that is not him. And when his mother touched him to help him up, he said he felt whatever was in him come out of him, and it must have gone into her. And then he's saying, as this all happened, he saw his mother's face change. So he like describes it as, I felt a possession and saw a possession happen within seconds.
I
don't like it. I don't like it. Not even a little bit. Okay, so we are on day 28 of living in this house. 4 weeks of living in this house. George wakes up at 3:15, same as he does every night. But he can't move. So he's up, but something's holding him down. He can hear banging and screaming coming from the boys' room, and they're calling for help. Now, what's going on in the boys' room is, so these beds are the same beds that were from, like, the Defeos.
Why?
Because
the
beds were anchored to the walls. So, like, how it's described is they're kind of like a concrete bottom, and they're built into the walls of the house. Like, it's not like twin beds or not twin beds, what are those, bunk beds, where it's like,
Bunk
it's
beds.
wood. Somehow these beds were anchored to the wall. So when they got there, it was like, okay, throw your mattress on it and that's your bed. Weird, but a design thing of this house.
Yeah.
So the beds had come off of the walls and were banging into each other. These like cement, very heavy, very sturdy, very ill what the fuck beds. And the kids can't get down. They are levitated off the ground and the beds are clashing into each other. Now, as George is laying in bed, not being able to move, Kathy starts levitating. So he was able to somehow grab her hand. Like, he could move his hand, but he couldn't get it off the bed. So he grabbed her hand before she, like, floated away. But she's assed out levitating, not waking up or hearing anything that's going on. And I don't think it really bothered Missy either, because I didn't see anything happening to Missy while all this is going on. Finally, somehow he breaks whatever is holding him down. Like, he breaks the connection. And he gets Kathy awake, and everything in the boys' room calms down. And he goes to the phone. None of the phones work except the one in the basement where his quote-unquote office is supposed to be. And he calls the priest back. Now, I mean, like I said, we're already at 1:15, so there's a lot that, like, I didn't include. But the priest was having his own shit going on. He calls the priest and is like, dude, you need to come back. You need to come bless this house again. Something's going on. And he starts, like, giving him the rundown. And the priest is just like, why are you still there? Leave the fucking house. Get out of the house. Like, get your kids, get your wife, get the fuck out.
Why are you still
why
there?
Are you there? Are you stupid? Get out. And he's like, oh shit, what a great idea. So they pack up a bag, even if, like, they might have even just taken the clothes on their back. They get in the car and they drive to a motel and they never go back to the house again. Ever. So now after leaving, the family actually, like, a few weeks after this, moved to San Diego. They're like, we need to get as far away from this fucking house. I'm never going back there. I want nothing to do with it. We're done. So they didn't even clean out the house. They made their family go back and get all their shit. And they had it shipped to San Diego. They're like, deuces, we're out. Goodbye. After leaving, the Lutz family did grant exclusive access to a specific news outlet on Long Island. And they were tied to the paranormal community. So this, like, news outlet had ties. And this is where Ed and Lorraine Warren get pulled in. Now, I've decided, since this is as long as it is already, I'm going to cover a lot of the aftermath of this story and the Warrens on Patreon. So I wanted to make sure I covered all the big stuff that happened.
Which is holy shit.
There's still so much more.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry to do this. I really hate to say it, but, like, I'm going to put the rest of it on Patreon. So the Warrens get involved. A group of paranormal investigators do come in. This included the Warrens, and they investigated the house. They really didn't get much quote-unquote evidence. Now, Lorraine commented that this is the worst haunting and the closest to hell she has ever felt. She also said in the playroom she saw hundreds of shadow people staring at her, and she was not allowed in that room.
Jesus Christ.
Now, the only true evidence they caught is a picture, which will be on the blog, of a little boy's head poking out of one of the bedroom doors. You see him over the banister.
Yep.
And nobody but the investigative team was in this house. So there were no children. There was nobody even on the floor except for the person. Like, they were walking up the stairs and took this picture. And this was the first time they were on this floor. The boy in the picture is identical to John Defeo, who was, I believe, the youngest of the
youngest one
of the Defeo family. So that was a lot. That was a ton of information. I had like 10 pages of notes, so we just kind of rolled. But again, for Patreon, I plan to cover more of the Lutz children's accounts, like other things that happened to them. There is also quite a bit of evidence that George was actually very into the occult, possibly even Satanism, which could have been influential in this.
Yeah.
I want to cover a little bit more about what happened to the priest who came on site and blessed the house, because he had his own influence from this house. There was a secret red room that wasn't on the plans for the house that the Lutz family found in the basement. And then also investigation. I want to cover a little bit more of the investigations and news coverage that happened. So that's all going to be on Patreon. So hang tight. There's more information coming. And also, just a quick little teaser, I'm also going to cover a lot of the Ed and Lorraine Warren controversies on Patreon over the next couple months. So if you want to hear more about that, it's all going to be there. We just ran out of time. That's just way too much information.
But also, like, the murders is one thing, but the hauntings is crazy. It's crazy. That house was nuts during that's a lot. There's a lot of shit.
There's so much controversy over it too. Like, you have all of these issues. Like, you had the murders, you had this, but the only ties to the murders, apparently, like, for the haunting itself, were the nightmares. The fact that the kids were sleeping in the positions that the Defeo kids were found deceased in. And at 3:15, George would hear gunshots and screaming sometimes. Right. I mean, but now you have flies. You have this demonic pig. I mean, I didn't even cover the green slime or the black toilets. There are so many other more demonic things, which,
there's a lot.
It could be because of the occult influence, if that was even a thing. Because a lot of the kids are like, yeah, no, he was definitely doing satanic shit in the basement. And then there are the people who are like, well, the parents, okay, so, the major conspiracy is, okay, well, George and Kathy went to the police. They read everything up. They knew everything about the murders. Maybe his business wasn't doing as well as it could have been. And, that was a main stressor for him. And what if, they needed to make some extra money on the side and this was the perfect way to do it? All of a sudden there's a haunting and now you have 3 kids in a household where, they're with this kind of newer stepdad. They're just trying to please the parents. So they're just going along with it. And they're, if all the kids are under 10, they're pretty influential. You can say, didn't you just see a ghost come through the wall?
Yeah. And they did go on a lot of interviews after that. Like they milked this.
Yeah.
So a lot of people think it's a matter of, and they got paid for every interview, every show they went on. So
books,
so there is a lot of
books have been written about this house. So again, that's all stuff we're going to cover more in depth on Patreon. So if you want to join us over there, go to our website, deathbeforebooze.com, click on Patreon. It's $5 a month is the lowest we can go. I heard this thing about Patreon right now, and I know it's a thing. If you have an iPhone and you download the Patreon app, Apple is somehow charging you an extra base fee for Patreon. So just go on your computer, and use your desktop. Samsung iOS or whatever, they don't have the Samsung Game Store or whatever, Play Store, whatever it's called. If you have one of those, a Google-based phone, they're for some reason not charging this extra fee. But to use it on Apple, if you download the app on Apple and then sign up for a thing, you get an extra fee, and that fee just goes to Apple. It doesn't go to us or Patreon.
Right,
it's weird. So, I'm just trying to save you money if you decide to join Patreon.
Right.
We do have different tiers. They start at $5. I think they go up to $50 a month, but that's something ridiculous that I don't think anybody's ever going to do. Anyway, so join Patreon so you can get all that content. Again, if you're at our website and want to look at our merch, you can go to deathbeforebooze.com and click on merch. That's where all of our blog stuff is, so you can get our sources and pictures. Make sure you're following us on social media. Rate, review, subscribe, and hit the bell on YouTube. And yeah, if you want to rate and review, do it on Apple Podcasts. That really helps us out the most. But I do know that Spotify also has a rating system. You can rate us on Facebook as well. Throw a review over there. That would be amazing. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for coming back. We hope you like the Amityville horror, and let us know, like Jen said, let us know if you like this kind of setup. And we will do it more often if you like it.
Yeah, and like let us know if there's any cases that you think could do this type of setup, and then we'll dive in. That would be fun.
This was fun. I've learned a lot.
Okay. I learned I'm never going into a haunted house. I'm never going to buy it. And that's
I would definitely buy a haunted house, but I would definitely buy a haunted house. I think I did buy a haunted house.
Not one where there were 6 people murdered.
No. I don't think I'd buy somewhere where people were murdered, but I definitely did buy a haunted house. So fun. Okay, guys, we love you so much. Thanks for coming.
Love you guys. Stay spooky. Bye.